The one you want me to talk about after your presentation?
No, it's your presentation first. You see,
my presentation first.
Yeah, it's Sunday came too quickly. Wednesday came too quickly after Sunday for me to even give some thought about it.
Well, I'm not real clear in my own mind as to how this will unfold, but I'll try.
That's a good start. That is a good start. If you
so the idea that I'd kind of like to explore. Actually, that's really quite wrong. Actually, it's not an idea. The hypothesis that I would like to explore with you is around the idea of what it means for me to awaken.
Okay.
And some of what I perceive to be the challenges and opportunities associated with the exploration of awakening. Because some people would say, well, why would you even bother? Why would you even bother? So I guess there's a few things I probably need to try and cover off on and then try and join them together a little bit. So one of the first challenges, I think, to waking up is the limitation of language.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, and I think what I'm sort of pointing at there is that all of our lives, we're very quick to put labels on things. And there are some consequences about labeling things. And like to try and illustrate that idea, for example, is if you'd never seen a bird before, this is going to sound paradoxical, but anyway, if you've never seen a bird before, you would look at this creature in awe and amazement, I would suggest. But as soon as someone says to you, that's a bird, and attaches a label to it, the very next time that you see that creature, you say, oh, there's a bird. And as a result of that, is you tend not to see it for what it is. You see a label, that's a bird.
Right.
Now, when you think about that idea of having labels given to us, at a very young age, our parents give us labels as well. So they say, you are Michael. You say, oh, Michael, I'm Michael, I'm Michael, I'm Michael. So that's who I am. And then, Michael, you're a little boy. Oh, I'm a boy, I'm a boy, I'm a boy. So I'm Michael and I'm a boy. And on those labels go. Through our early childhood development, but for the most part of our life, in terms of, I'm an architect, I'm a doctor, I'm a this, I'm a that, I'm a father, I'm a brother, I'm a sister, all of these labels come in. And those labels, in my view, have the same impact as does the label of saying that's a bird, in the sense that we cease to look. Oh, I'm Michael, or I'm Don. And so when someone says, so who are you? Or what are you? You say, well, I'm Don. Or I'm the architect, I'm the doctor, I'm the brother, I'm the father, And so all of these words have a reductionist effect.
Right.
Rather than enabling us to see who we really are. So why is that relevant? Well, it's relevant in the sense that say to someone, what do you really want? They'll quite often say, oh, I want depending on how old they are. Well, I want an education, or I want a job, or I want a relationship, I want a house, I want money in the bank, I want. But why do you want that? And the latter seems to go to the direction of, because that will make me happy.
Right.
So if people want to be happy, the challenge for them in a unawakened state is they're not looking at what's going on. So if you were to look at what's going on, like where do these labels come from? Like they're an idea that's either come to us or has been given to us. And then if you choose to look, and I mean really look, where do ideas come from? And in my experience, is when you do look, when I've looked, say I. So when I've looked, I've noticed that the ideas come and go of their own accord. They're not things that I seem to have any control over. And they seem to come out of a silence and a stillness, in my experience.
Right.
And so if I have been looking at things, like when I look at things, even when there's a sound, the sound seems to have a backdrop of this silence and stillness. So I surmise then that the thoughts are not my own. Because if I can't control the thoughts and where they originate and when they disappear, then how can I say they're mine? So to try and draw some of these things together, it would seem to me that a lot of these labels that we grow up with and the idea of these thoughts or the mind, I think it would be fair to say that they're quite often the sources of unhappiness and suffering and disquiet. So when I've looked at some of the scriptures sort of thing, in fact, I was just trying to lay my hand on one of my study Bibles that I actually don't seem to be able to do in a short space of time, but anyway. But I kind of recall that there was around the Gospel of Timothy, like the opening phrases of that from memory. Sort of, and Timothy was written shortly after Christ died, so I think it was one of the first Gospels. But in effect, there's a phrase in there in the early parts of it which sort of says, the instruction from Jesus is to seek, like you're on fire. He didn't say that. He didn't say that. And when you seek, you'll be disenchanted or disaffected, words to that effect. And then after that, you will be joyful. So I was trying to think about, well, within the context of the labels and the backdrop of where ideas and that come from, and how we grow up and live our lives in an unawakened state. In effect, what I think that Jesus in that case was saying was, for you to experience divine joy, you have to let go of everything you think you are. Let go of your ideas, let go of your labels, let go of all of these propositions about who or what I am. And it seems to me that a lot of people, when confronted with that choice, either consciously or unconsciously, choose suffering over joy because they're not prepared to let go of all of this identity, their little space in the cosmos for who they think they are.
Right.
And as a result of that, it's basically impossible for them to wake up, because to wake up, you have to let go of those things. To see things as they really are, you have to go to that proposition with with an empty outlook, with one of I actually don't know, with one that has no predetermined outcome at the outset. And that's a big ask for many people, because like a lot of the like the Christian saying is, you need to die to be reborn. Well, the reborn is really, I think, that true awakening to who and what you really are.
Right.
And again, the language is sort of, made mincemeat of it in the context of, being a born again Christian. Well, that's clearly not in my direct experience as to what that term actually meant. It actually
Right.
means
I agree with you.
completely letting go of your perception, of who you think you are. Because it's all most of it is based on language. And, using my example about the bird is that immediately closes down your ability to see what really is. So, so the challenge and the opportunity, and I suppose part of that potential process is, if you're seeking to know God, and I would suggest that means knowing who you really are and experiencing that true silence and stillness from which the divine is and manifests from, then to wake up is you basically have to let everything go. Because if you don't, you will never be in a position to see things as they really are.
And by using the word let go, you mean lose the attachment that those labels have. So, yeah.
And I think at the same time, there's also an acknowledgement that I actually don't know. I actually don't know. So I can look at that creature over there that we've called a bird, but I don't really know what it is.
Yeah. It's just a label. Okay. Okay. And you look at your motor car, and you say, well, this is a Mercedes. Okay. And your attachment to the Mercedes is what you're talking about letting go, as opposed to selling it and buying a Kadonk.
Yeah, or whatever.
Yeah. It's not about the actual possession of it. It's about the actual attachment to what that possession represents in your life.
And that attachment applies equally to, applies to everything,
Yeah.
because these are attachments that I've held on to about who I really am. I'm Don, I'm male, I'm a father, I'm a brother, I'm this occupation, I'm easygoing, I'm humorous, I'm attractive, I'm ugly, I'm fat, I'm thin, on and on and on and on.
But you are describing elements of what other people can see, perhaps.
Perhaps. But as soon as you attach a label to it, then you're not seeing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I hear what you say.
So that's what I've been thinking about.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. You know, my thoughts when I just thought of Logos on Sunday evening, and you know, I immediately started thinking about not so much the duality of the physical plane that we talk about a lot, but the fact that there is the physical universe, and there is a spiritual, or possibly many spiritual universes, if that's the plural of universe. And you know, that has been something that not only between Sunday and now, but something that is also puzzled me in that, you know, as you know, I've experienced spiritual traveling, and so, but then I hadn't a clue where I was, or, you know, there was no sort of labels to identify where I was, or I couldn't say to myself, well, there, all I could do was describe what I had experienced and what I had seen, and that didn't give me any form of not satisfaction, although that it didn't give me reason to continue wanting to do that. Okay, because I couldn't, my conscious mind, which you know, couldn't put it all together, and I didn't have any particular feeling during the time of experiencing it either. So, you know, for me, you know, I can understand from a quantum physics point of view of energy and different levels of energy, and that therefore there are different dimensions and there are different, maybe, you know, galaxies of different frequency vibrations. But it still doesn't answer what is the spiritual realm. Okay. And that, and it's easy, again, to use your example, you know, I apply labels, okay? Okay, well, it's God, okay? There is the label, okay? And God has qualities, okay? So here are the qualities, and, you know, God has frequency, here are the frequencies. God has color and light, and but they're all labels. So can we get away from those labels? Okay. But then we talk about like oneness. That's a label. Okay. It's an English word, as you said right at the beginning. It's very difficult to use language to describe what you want to talk about. But I haven't experienced an alternative, really. Okay. You know, some through contemplation, yeah, but other than perhaps feeling there are moments when I absolutely feel, you know, fantastic, let's say joy, okay, but is that joy unconditional? And you know, how did it arrive? You know, nothing I did gave me that joy, it just was there. You know, perhaps I woke up and it was there, or I just recognized for the last 6 hours I was feeling this joy. Okay. And again, I can only label it as that feeling as joy. So yeah, that's really what I still ponder about. I don't know if you can add any thoughts to that, because I'd like to resolve that at a point in eternity.
So do you think that, I guess for the want of a better word, that we are hardwired to seek or experience joy? Is that?
Well, you see, the word hardwired labels something that is very limiting. Okay, so I think about it, and I think, but if you perhaps give a meaning to hardwired that is not relative to anything that we can associate with the word hardwired, like something, for example, that energy, you cannot destroy energy. Okay, you can only transform it. Now, if that's hardwired, okay, then yes, then I believe we're hardwired. But if you meant that everything is predetermined for us, then no, not.
I guess what I had in mind though is that when you look at a lot of things that seem to motivate people, whether it be money or relationships or status or power or any of those things, the underlying element associated with that seems to me that will make me happy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is the case, but it's certainly not my case. Okay, I can say that with confidence and categorically. That's not the case. So what is the case? I guess one asks, and back to part of what you said earlier is you can have that material possession that's very nice, and you are grateful for it, but you're not attached to it. Okay. There's no emotional attachment. There's no feeling attachment. I feel good in the community because I'm driving a Mercedes. So, I feel good in the community because I've got this or that, and which implies that you're doing it so that other people can admire you. So again, that's an attachment. That's an ego.
I drive a Mercedes because it's a symbol of my success.
Yeah. And I drove a Mercedes because my partner said I had to get rid of my old donk that was only a 1200 Cortina car. they said, as my board of directors, every one of them owned a Mercedes. Okay. And I used to arrive at meetings with this little old Cortina, grey Cortina too. And it just, I bought one because they took me to the chairman took me to the garage. Okay. He said, I'm going to trade mine in. He says, why don't you just consider buying one? Okay. And so I don't know whether he had the salesman pre-organized, but the salesman just came up with one of those deals you can't refuse,
Yeah.
Yeah. So having said that, yesterday Sue and I bought a car. Oh, I sent you a notice.
Sent the note. Yeah, that's excellent.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, 2005 model. Yeah.
So has the other car gone now, or?
No, it hasn't. We needed to make sure that after our discussion, that we needed to have one there. So when the other one goes, we're not left, even for a day, stranded with not being able to collect grandchildren and stuff like that. And when you consider the heat of today, we're about 40 degrees, okay, and not a breath of wind, so you must know how hot that is. A fire could start tomorrow. Now we've already got fires in the area. When I say area, in WA, okay, around Perth, not anywhere near us. And but the next one could be here, and so you want to make a quick getaway with the dogs, and So we thought, no, let's just go, and we're going to have to do it. We know that, we've been told. And so this morning, having bought it yesterday and taken delivery of it, we sent him a message this morning saying, you can come and collect it now. It's available. Yeah. So yeah, so that took me, digressed. But anyway, yeah.
So it's interesting, isn't it? Because, you know, the so-called cost of seeing things as they really are is, particularly, you know, when you reach, I suppose, any age really, is to just say, well, everything I thought it was is not true. Is not what it appears to be.
Yeah. You see, I look at it and have, and I've mentioned it in our discussions before, you know, it's not part of something that's going to be part of me, whoever I am, for eternity. Okay. And therefore, it cannot be significant. It cannot hold any value, you know, other than in this three-dimensional world, you know, maybe to get around or get transport or, you know, move around or something like that. But, you know, for practical purposes. Yeah, so that's my definition. You know,
and I think that's an incredibly empowering way to be as well, because, you know, notwithstanding what's happened in your life, you're not attached to it.
Yeah, yeah, and that's, you know, that's freeing you. I believe, you know, Moya talks about the wheel of 84. Okay, that's 8,400,000 possible reincarnations. Okay, and we've got to detach ourselves from that wheel. Okay, and so a lot of Moya's teachings is, you know, about that. Okay, and what we're talking about this afternoon is about that. Okay, that detachment, getting off that wheel of 84, because we're only coming back because of attachments, maybe to our deeds, or, you know, the way we've behaved, or whatever it is. We've now, that's got to be paid back, or we've got to be paid back. And so that revolves around and around. The only way we can jump off that wheel is to become detached from everything that is related to that three-dimensional world, that three-dimensional galaxy. Okay, and then we can be present here, but not attached to all the laws that attach us to karma. Yeah.
So I guess in the broader sense, one of the ponderings then is, especially about things that you and I have talked about, you know, what is our role in the things that we do, is how do you encourage people to let go of everything that they think they are?
You know, again, because you asked me to also, you know, take the angle of Logos or Moya. Moya says it's about individuals. It's not about you know, trying to, you know, change the world as
So true. So true.
and you know, he says he, as the Lord Eagle, he says he's like an eagle that flies very, very high and looks down and finds a soul that is now detached, and he can easily pick up and goes. The eagle flies down and saves that individual soul. Okay. and he says it's one soul at a time.
Yep.
And so, you know, we look at the things that we've discussed this afternoon and say, fine, you know, we need to detach ourselves and or awaken to reality, eternal reality, a spiritual reality, a God reality, and get off that wheel of 84 and be ready when the master appears, you know, and then a master will appear, and then we'll be taught, okay, and then possibly for another couple of incarnations we're being taught, and we're moving around with that teaching, and I really do believe in that saying, that you know, when the consciousness is real, when the energy is right, when the intentions are right, the master will appear, and the master that is relevant for that particular soul and that particular consciousness right now at this moment. Okay, and I think, you know, if we had to take ourselves as examples, you know, the last 50 years, or let's call it, yeah, 50 years is good enough. One has moved in a sense. You know, one master has replaced another after time. Okay, and especially when we freed ourselves from the restraints of a suffocating religion, perhaps, okay, which we didn't realize was suffocating until we'd actually got to breathe and look back on it. And so, so that was part of the process that you were discussing with labeling and seeing that as who we are and seeing that as our reality. Okay. And then we got new masters and new things. And I think some of them were just flirting. You know, you really read a particular book and something was just at the right thing, right said about that, and then, you know, in due time something else cropped up, and it's just the master will appear when the time is right in each moment. It doesn't mean one master for the rest of your life. Okay. And I mean, my sister yesterday sent me an article. Okay, whether it turns out to be legit or not, but it was an Indian that was talking about the incredible number of Muslims that are busy converting to Christianity right now. Okay, and of course, historically, the Muslims, you know, they didn't like that. They didn't like their people to move on, and sometimes it was punishable. You know.
Well, I was going to say it's a mortal sin, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And the further you go back, you'd have been, you know, probably killed or put in prison or beaten or something like that to get the devil out of you. But the point is that they have reached a point where I think, you know, the master has appeared for them now. Okay, and so you need to follow that. I think that is also so important. And it's not a matter of searching. I think that's the wrong word. Eh? You know, if you just, as an individual, do the things of attachment, and, you know, you can do spiritual practices and things like that because it's for you as an individual, and then expect that at some point in the future, you know, the master will appear. So, yeah, that's my take on it.
It's a good take.
And you think of, you know, you think of Moya, and as it happened, the one Logos book that I did go and pick up, and I got to read a paragraph, I think it was, but I just opened it randomly, which, you know, I like to do that. Okay, and I could swear that I've never seen that written before. Yet I probably the book that he wrote that I was looking at is called The Secret of Life. Okay, and right towards the end there's this paragraph, and he just says, people don't know who I am. Okay, and then he describes who he is. Okay, and how he operates, and how he operates on every single spiritual plane, and that he is God, but he's also absolute nothingness. Okay, and yeah, and then he takes it on from there. And I can't recall having read that. Well, I must have read it because I read that book a few times, and you know, whenever I read a book, I even take notes and think, you know, how can I get more involved with the God person? Yeah, yeah. But, yeah. So, you know, just that he uses the word, you know, I'm God, and then beyond God is nothingness.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, it shows, you know, it like, okay, so we're heading towards nothingness. I know it's a label, but it is a label that has meaning.
Well, it's almost like, you know, the God as we think that we know it is basically a stepping stone.
Yes, yeah, you see, and because we call him the Father, you know, that he thinks that he's going to teach us and imbue us and look after us and so on. You know, we otherwise we call him the Creator. Okay, so he created things. Great. Okay, so what? Okay, you know, who am I? You know, that's the question. That's the question. And so, as soon as you start saying nothingness, because he talks in other books that he came from nothingness. Okay, and he talks how that happened, and how eventually the pendulum swung, and so he got from there. You got black matter and stuff like that, and so you're going back to nothingness. Okay. And maybe you're going back to total non-consciousness. I've never used that word before. Non-consciousness. Okay. You know, not unlimited consciousness, not God consciousness. You pass through that, and you go to non-consciousness. Yeah. Now, does that sound exciting? No. A new Mercedes sounds better. You know. You know, why worry about that? You'd rather worry about now. You know. But I can't. You know, it's just not in me. Okay, it really is not in me. You know, yeah, and, yeah, non-consciousness, boring,
But
and
not,
yet,
non-existent.
I don't know. You know, are they synonyms? Yeah, I don't know. But because you know, we in a number of different teachings, they talk about, you know, going back home to God, and then not necessarily on the 10th plane, where certain energies and rules for the lower planes are made, and but beyond that, I wonder. They talk about being dissolved into the Godhead. Okay, so does that mean I lose my identity? Okay, so am I my identity? Hmm? Am I my identity, whatever that is, and my personality or whatever? Okay, am I my soul? that dissolves into God, okay, and then move in this this God consciousness to oblivion or to absolute nothingness. You know, is that another synonym? No, I don't think it is actually, because I think if you're moving into absolute nothingness, it must be the most supreme. If there were such a label, a feeling, or it must be the place of all places. Okay, that that's beyond the soul. Something that it's beyond our identity. It's beyond a label. But it's something because we go there. Okay, we evolve there with everybody else who's in the same God consciousness. You know, maybe that happens on the 10th plane, and then you get up to the 64th plane, and then after that, it's nothing. But the planes are growing anyway, so I wouldn't know how many there are now. But you know, the last writing that Moya did, there were 64. And but yes, it's still going then beyond that. And he describes sitting in absolute nothingness and being in absolute nothingness. So it's outside of anything that is spiritual, beyond what is spiritual. Our label is spiritual. Such an interesting topic you brought up with labels. Yeah, yeah. But we've got no option. You know, in the third dimension, we have no option. We've got to give things label. We just mustn't see our identity as that label. That's wrong. That's what you were saying.
Well, do you have to have a label though?
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
do.
if you want to have a conversation with someone else, you know, you have to, but I suppose. But if you're not having a conversation with anyone else, what's preventing us from just looking at something and just seeing it as it is?
Oh yeah, and I think we do. You know, you've often said, and your audio book that you've just finished. You know, the guy was speaking about trees and you know the sort of life and energy that they have. I look at any of my plants and the creatures that come into my garden. I just see them as energy. I see them as part of me. I'm part of the energy. So. I don't tend to give labels. So if I tell you what I saw, I'll give it a label, and so that you can understand the conversation. And oh, can I look forward to the time when we don't even have to talk? Eh? We just we just communicating in a whole different dimension. Wouldn't that be glorious? Eh? But we'll see. We'll see when it happens. It can happen. Okay, it can happen. And yeah.
But it's also quite a liberating thing, isn't it?
Very, very liberating. It is. Yes, it is.
You know, that to use that guru's sort of terminology is, you know, I'm not this body and I'm not even this mind. And then if you, in a practical sense, sit down at night before you go to bed and just sort of do a catalogue of what's me versus what's mine.
Yeah. I listened to that video that you sent me of Sadhguru about the soil.
Oh yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? You know.
I enjoyed it. The very next day, I brought some of that into my class. You know, I was doing soil and composting and fertilizing, and I brought that in as well. And it's but I mean, he's on a big movement to make people aware of certain things. With obviously the organisation that he's going to travel to all these countries to, but the whole concept of your soil could become extinct. Yeah.
Because I think he said some of the scientific studies were showing already, like in the US, a lot of that agricultural land only has 3% organic matter left in it. You know.
Yes, he was saying that, and I can understand that. And you know, when I talk in my classes, I'm really quite emphatic that people must grow their vegetables in organic matter. Okay.
Well,
And they,
he was quite overt. In fact, I heard your voice when he was saying it. You know, in terms of your physical and mental health relies on the micronutrients in, you know, organic matter in the soil. You know,
yeah, yeah,
so if
yeah.
it's not there, then anything that you grow in it is not going to, you know, facilitate your health, either physical, you know.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I take it from the macro and micronutrients in soil, okay, to the macro and micronutrients in the plants, to the micronutrients in the body, okay. Um, so I take it forward, but it's the truth, okay,
Mm, mm,
um, absolute truth. Uh,
mm.
yeah.
But a little bit of a surprise, though, isn't it? When as you said, so what's the guru doing? Talking about soil health.
Yeah, and riding around on motorbikes or something from
Yeah,
one country to the next.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
Mm. But he's been interested for some time in terms of like the health of the rivers and obviously the health of the soil, and so he sees it obviously as a direct, tangible link to enabling someone to develop in a spiritual sense by being, you know, physically and mentally healthy. And he often
yeah,
talks about, you know, that if you're not balanced, then it's very hard for you to go and do things, you know.
mm,
So if you don't have balance, you can't ride a bike, for example, you know.
right,
So I think it's the same sort of analogy, is that if you're not balanced as a human being,
right, right,
then your ability to develop in a spiritual sense is going to be that much harder.
right, right. Yeah, I agree. But it's not about anybody else.
No, that's right, and that's something that can only happen at the individual level. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, so yeah, again, you know, if 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 you understand the context, you know, when the master, when you're ready, a master appears. But you know, we think of a guru. You know, maybe it's when you're ready, Don Jones will appear. Okay,
That's right.
and so he will
Whoever the
talk to
hell
you
it
about.
is.
Okay, so yeah, so you'll make them aware. Okay, maybe you know through whatever you do in um, your work that you do, or the hobbies that you do. Um, you know, when people are ready, they'll find you.
Mm.
Okay, and and yeah, that's the time. But you mustn't go and try and find them.
No, no, that's right.
Yeah, yeah. So it works at all the levels, I think.
Mm.
And yeah, I only thought about that now. But yeah,
And there's so many examples of that too, isn't there? You know, I mean, I've read so many times where, you know, people have 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 a gift of teaching, and they will just sit there and teach, irrespective of whether there's no one in the room or one person in the room or 1,000 people in the room. It doesn't matter, you know, that they will teach. You know, so
well, now that is interesting. It's happened to me twice. What is today? Wednesday. On Monday, happened to me twice. I two lessons, nobody pitched.
okay.
Okay, and then now I was contemplating that question. You know,
Mm,
do I teach? Um,
mm,
at and then in both times, I asked my technical assistant. I said, you know, shall we close the class and not her? And she said, no, it's up to me.
mm,
Uh, I said, no, I'm going to teach. Okay.
mm,
And
mm,
as soon as I said that, the first person arrived.
mm,
Okay.
mm,
And there was only one throughout the whole class, but that person arrived.
mm,
Okay.
mm,
And it was a great class. Okay. Because of the interaction. And the person was so grateful.
mm.
And So, yeah, interesting you say that. Yeah.
And it takes that sort of discipline, and that sort of, I suppose it's that level of awareness, is that it, as you said, there's no attachment. It's just,
Yeah.
I'm going to give the message, and it doesn't matter who's there or how many are there.
Yeah, yeah. Which makes me think at this moment as well, something that Moya said a long, long time ago. He said, whenever you sit down in the name of Logos, okay, you've got many people on the inner worlds around you waiting to listen to what you have to say, or encouraging you to, do some of the spiritual exercises that Logos suggests. And yeah, that's interesting. There are always people around there that are attracted. Perhaps because of the label, I don't know, or the energy maybe.
Yeah, but I think an important part of that is that, as you say, is if I've got something to say or something to do,
yeah,
it's not contingent on who or how many are sitting in front of me.
Yeah.
Because there'll be people who you might be able to see, but they're quite clearly, based on what Moya says, is there'll be many that you can't see.
Yeah.
But you just need to know that they'll be there anyway. So.
Yeah.
Well, hasn't that been an interesting discussion?
Yes. Thanks for your topic that you brought up. Okay. Excellent. I think you need to do it again and again and again and again.
Well, I think it definitely needs to be a regular thing. That's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
it becomes a practice in its own right, doesn't it? So.
And we've said that before as well, that we need to have a topic, and we need to evolve around. And we were going to plan it, and then I wasn't happy with planning it. I thought it needs to be sort of just impulsive. It just needs to be something that comes up. So yeah. Yeah. Maybe a good place then.
And just thinking about all of those things that we've discussed tonight, it's further reinforced, well, I suppose, an awakening in my own perspective as well. To, for the want of a better word, is to just let go of stuff. It just doesn't matter. It just does not matter.
Yeah, yeah. Unless it is something that's going to be eternal.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But in this realm, not much matters.
Other than that, it does matter.
Exactly right, except those things that do matter. Exactly right. Exactly right. Very good, very good. Well, thank you for that.
Okay, Dan. Yeah, okay, no, I enjoyed that. Thank you very much.
Okay. Talk to you on Sunday.
Yeah, great. Okay.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bye.